Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos en una nueva entrega de la serie de seminarios en Supply Chain Management and Technology, seminarios organizados por la Maestría en Supply Chain Management de la Facultad de Administración de la Universidad de los Andes, en los que hemos tenido la participación de varios conferencistas tocando temas coyunturales del área de la logística y la tecnología, como Boris Pranchon, Managing Director LATAM de Kuehne Nagel, William Torres, Director de Operaciones de Cine Colombia, Daniel Rodríguez, director de operaciones de Miniso, entre otros. El día de hoy tenemos la 13ª entrega de la serie y nos acompaña el profesor Marcus Thiel, profesor asociado y coordinador académico de la maestría en Supply Chain Management de la Facultad de Administración, y el profesor Somyavet Chowdhury, de Aston Business School en el Reino Unido, quien nos acompaña como profesor invitado de la Escuela Internacional de Verano 2020. El profesor Chowdhury es profesor de Tecnologías de la Información y la Comunicación en el Departamento de Operaciones e Información del Aston Business School. Su investigación se refiere a la inteligencia artificial, las tecnologías blockchain, la economía circular, los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, la salud mental y la productividad empresarial en las pymes. Su investigación ha sido publicada en revistas ABS de primer nivel como el British Journal of Management y el International Journal of Production Economics. Les recuerdo a todos que el seminario se desarrollará en inglés. Welcome, Professor Thiel and Chowdhury. Thank you for joining us today.
To everybody from my part, welcome Zoom for this webinar. We're looking forward to your conference as an expert in this field. Yeah, we are pending now to hear about artificial intelligence in supply chains and the applications, and also hear the context of an emerging market like Colombia. Welcome, Sue, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Marcus, very much for the introduction. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And it has been an honor so far to deliver the summer school. So I must say good afternoon, everyone who are joining us for this session today. So today's session will be on artificial intelligence in supply chain. And a bit about me. I've just become a senior lecturer in Aston Business School, and I work in the Operations and Information Management Department. And we are in Birmingham, in United Kingdom. And my research interests are manifold. So my research interests are manifold. So I work in the area of emerging innovation, which is big data, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and drone applications. And in the case of artificial intelligence, I look at AI transparency. It is a very emerging topic, that ability to explain the artificial intelligence models, and also work in the area of blockchain. And other than that, my research is very multidisciplinary. So I work in the area of digital circular economy, that how digital technologies can be enablers in a circular economy and adoption of those practices. And as well as on looking at the impact of mental health and well-being of employees in small businesses on the business productivity. And these are the manifold areas I work in. And the basic idea is to develop a sustainable society and transform it through digital technology. I work with colleagues in Aston University, and our team is led by Professor Prasad. I work in my colleagues in Aston University, a team led by Professor Prasantade, Professor Paola Rupores, who is the head of the Aston Crisis Center, and my other colleagues, Oscar and Ahmed. So we work in different areas in a lot of countries, which is in South Asia, in Mexico, and as well as in India and African countries. So today's session, the basic idea will be to give you an overview of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence was working in a pre-COVID situation and what has been the impact of COVID on AI and how has AI behaved as a result of COVID. So there have been various studies about the priority of AI in the businesses, and every business, most businesses have a supply chain or are a part of the supply chain. So what we find is that the studies that have been reported so far, 93% of the businesses feel that AI is the top priority. And when I tell about this is the pre-COVID scenario. So pre-COVID scenario means that at that stage, no one knew that there would be a pandemic. And if you look at how AI is being used in the various businesses, which was published in Harvard Business Review a few years ago, the primary use of AI has been to find basically detection of security issues. There is IT security flaws, but at the same time, it has been used. At the same time, it has been used for purposes like marketing, for customer experience, and many other issues. If you just hold on for a second, I think that there is some interference in my mic, so I would like to just pause and try to set my mic again. I hope I have just reconnected my mic. I hope the interference is a bit low now. I'm not sure if there is interference or not.
It's very fine now.
It's clear now, right?
Sorry
for that. I was not sure why it happened. So we continue here. So how is AI being used in the companies? AI being used in a lot in the IT sector, but it has been also used in marketing and customer services to a lot of extent. Now, if we look at a survey which was conducted by 1,000 supply chain professionals and was published in March, that means the data was collected last year. And these are supply chain professionals and practitioners who are actually in top businesses and who have been actively uh, using technological innovations. What we find is that currently, based on the responses, the use of AI is almost 12%, and the use of predictive analytics, that is the forecasting ability to forecast, is 28%. So there are projects coming up which will increase the use of AI and increase the use of predictive analytics. We will see what is the difference between AI and predictive analytics in the subsequent slides. So the first thing is that who uses AI? So AI is basically now artificial intelligence is used by most companies or most services that we are using. For example, Amazon, DHL, which is a logistics flow, Netflix. Netflix has been our lifeline during the lockdown and during the COVID. HSBC, the banks for fraud detection. Business organizations like car manufacturers are using artificial intelligence to do predictive maintenance in the car. Dating websites, matchmaking websites, AI is basically the lifeline for these websites. And in society, we are using it every day, using in our smartphones. The moment we wake up until we sleep, we are in a world which is where our decisions, where everything is enabled by AI to a huge extent. Now, one of the things that is important to understand, that when we talk about a business, any business, then we will find that an average time spent by the businesses per week on manual processes, on invoice related tasks, and on supplier inquiries, specifically in a supply chain industry, is huge. And these tasks, if we look at it, they are ad hoc tasks, they are repetitive tasks, and these tasks can be automated. And around 6,500 hours are lost during a year on these tasks, which have the potential and which can be automated even without using advanced artificial intelligence, just using any form of automation. So, my question to you is, can you think of two tasks since you woke up today where you have used the technology but not AI? So, it's not a trick question. Two tasks since you woke up where you have used technology but not AI. And that will help you understand where AI is not being used. There are some tasks that there is no use of AI, even there is use of technology, but not artificial intelligence. Think about it and reflect on it if you can. So,
Yeah. Zoom, while the participants on YouTube have the little time delay, might need some time to answer. Maybe I can, in the meantime, just a little question with respect to the time savings. You talked about 6,500 hours, which might be saved. How does this translate in the concepts of management into shifting workforce into more creative, strategic tasks? Or is it then also related to set human beings free?
the 6,500 hours savings during the year will contribute to around 20% more in economic productivity. Now, when we are taking these hours out, we are not replacing the jobs. What we are doing is that we are making these these employees who are responsible for it free in order to take over other jobs which are more not only strategic but are more valuable and more have priority for the business. Now example of that job is that if you have to, instead of answering a supplier inquiry or doing a invoicing in a typical supply chain environment, what you want to do is that you want to whatever data you are getting from your whole supply chain. If you have a ERP system, you want to look at that data and try to plan ahead of time. Try to do the planning so that your company and you can meet the demands and are responsive to those demands. So those are the kind of tasks people could engage in more than doing this automated doing this repetitive task which can be done by bots.
Yeah, great.
So what I will do is that I will ask, I will keep the comments coming. We will have a look at it. However, I will move on with the definition of artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence? If we are 5 people sitting in a room, everyone is likely to have a different interpretation. How the way we define artificial intelligence and in the context of data-driven decision making is that artificial intelligence can interpret all kinds of data. By all kinds of data, we mean that it can interpret data of different types. It can be numbers, it can be audio, it can be video, it can be text, it can be from a sensor. So it can analyze all kinds of data. It can learn from data just like a human being. Just like human, we learn from experiences. The artificial intelligence algorithms can learn from historical data sets, which is also called as machine learning. And by interpreting all kinds of data, by learning from the data, it can use the learning to do specific goals and to achieve specific tasks, which is called augmenting human decision making. So it has 3 capabilities. One is the analytical capability to analyze the huge big data sets, automation, do it automatically without any human intervention, and augmentation, that is facilitate the human to make decisions from their recommendations. So that is the idea of artificial intelligence. Now, there are different artificial intelligence methods. The methods are machine learning, that is the ability of the artificial intelligence or algorithms to learn from historical data sets. We have robotic process automation. Robotic process automation is like a chatbot. Like when you are using a chatbot in order to automate certain processes which can do repetitive tasks. Computer vision. Computer vision is the ability to analyze images. Speech recognition, analyze audio, and natural language processing, which is analyze different texts in different languages. Now, if you remember, we talked about 16% of the supply chain is using AI, 28% of the supply chain is using predictive analytics. Now, when we talk about 16% are using AI means 16% are using all of these methods. And then 28% of them are using machine learning, which is used for forecasting, which is used for prediction. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is that we have an input data set. There is a model, which is the algorithm, and the algorithm or the model will produce an output. Now, this algorithm will learn from historical data sets. So this algorithm we put in historical data sets. And when after it has learned from the historical data sets, it will try to find and generate insights from the input data. Generating insight means it will find patterns in the data. How it can find patterns? It can find patterns because it has learned from a historical data set, and it will try to match the patterns that it has found in the historical data set to the current data set. So that's the basic idea of machine learning in a simplified manner. Now, in machine learning, what we have to, there are inputs and outputs, and there are lots of examples that we can use. So if we take an audio file, converting an audio file and then generating transcriptions, that is text from it. Or you have, if you are using Spotify, you are listening to your song and you are being recommended other songs based on that song. That is uses machine learning. Image, if in an image identifying the face of your friends, that is machine learning. Netflix, like you watch some movies and you get recommended movies based on what you watched. That is machine learning. And how it is learning? It is learning, the machine learning, the algorithm is learning from what you have already watched and other people who have also watched the same, let's say the same movie or the same series that you have watched, what they liked. Then we have social media tweets, and currently the most interesting one is that video interviews. That the video interviews are conducted online for certain organizations, and artificial intelligence makes the shortlisting decision based on certain criteria. So while we talk about machine learning, big data, IoT, and cloud, these we cannot talk about AI, machine learning algorithms without this. Big data is a huge data set, is the new oil, is the asset, is the key ingredient towards the machine learning model. Internet of Things, on what it does is that it has all the sensors that collects that data and communicates. So Internet of Things helps to generate the big data. Big data is the input to the artificial intelligence algorithm, in this case, a machine learning model. And the machine learning is just a set of algorithms that learns from this big data, learns from the big data to generate insights. And cloud platform is the storage or is the data processing platform that helps to do everything in real time and automates. So these four concepts are four independent concepts, but these four concepts are very much related to each other. So without big data, there cannot be a machine learning. Without Internet of Things, we may not have a big data. Without cloud, we may not be able to automate and do real-time processing. So analytics process, common term. There is a lot of analytics going on. So what is the analytics process? So analytics process, we divide it into two parts. One is cleaning the data, and another one is performing the analytics. Now, the key idea of setting up and cleaning the data is that so that the data is in a format that we can input it to the model. The data is in a format that the model can learn from it. Okay. Now, analytics, exploratory analytics is the basic descriptive analytics, which gives us an overview of the data, that what is the data about. Okay. It does not go inside, it does not generate insights. It just gives a basic overview of the data, what it is. Predictive analytics is where the model learns from historical data set to generate valuable insights. And these insights are in the form of patterns. So prediction means that it aims to predict the future, what is going to happen in the future. Then we have prescriptive analytics. Prescriptive analytics is recommendation system that based on that prediction, a recommendation is made. And then the visual analytics is basically presenting the recommendation and the prediction in a way that a decision maker or a human being with no technical expertise is able to understand it. So that is the whole analytics process. And in this case, the predictive analytics is where machine learning is used. Now, businesses used the whole analytics framework to drive their decision making, to drive their business processes, and also to increase their competitiveness in the market by being agile to the needs of the market, by being responsive. Now, OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, says that one of the important principles of any machine learning model is that it should be explainable. That means if the machine learning model predicts something, then the model itself should be able to say that how the prediction was made. Currently, or I won't say currently, a couple of years ago, the machine learning models were black box models. Black box means that the model is not transparent. You get the output, you get the prediction from the model, but you don't know why this prediction, how this prediction. So the idea is that whenever there is an output from the machine learning model, which is a prediction, then there should be a module which explains how the prediction was made, which explains how the model behaves, which explains what were the reasons that these predictions were made. Okay, so that is transparency in AI, and it is critical to build trust in the AI to make the decision makers, or in this case the supply chain consultants, adopt AI so that they feel that the AI is reliable based on the reasons for the output. Now, for there are many applications of machine learning and predictive analytics, but the key application in supply chain is demand forecasting. Ability to forecast how much I need to provide the supplies. Ability to understand what will be my stock, what will be my inventory, and well in advance. Okay, so that is the demand forecasting. The basic idea is that if I want to, if someone or a entity wants to forecast the demand, they use the historical data sets to look at the historical demands. AI learns from those historical demands and then predicts what is likely to be the demand. Now, the idea here is that from a management perspective, it is a lean practice because you minimize the overproduction and underproduction. So you optimize the production flow in a manufacturing industry or a food supply chain. So you minimize the waste here. And agile means you meet the dynamic needs even before they occur. So since you're predicting the future, you're planning for the future, not planning for today, you're planning for tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So one step ahead. But the difference is that you are using data sets which actually reflect this. Okay. And to explain the output, that is increase the transparency, means that the supply chain consultants can interpret it, understand it, trust it. So demand forecasting helps in managing inventory, managing production, supplier selection, which suppliers I should select based on the consortium I have. And if you're looking for perishable materials, like fish or something which has a shelf life, then you can also look at the shelf life of the fresh produce so that there is less wastage. So demand forecasting is critical for lean and agile practices and management. So what demand forecasting has done is that it has actually helped to make businesses and supply chains more sustainable, that is more green and lean at the same time. Now, there is one industry where artificial intelligence is used a lot, which is the fast fashion industry. Fast fashion means the fashion is like changing a lot, and fast fashion is not a green industry, but it is slowly becoming a green industry. Now, Zara is an example of fast fashion, okay? And it is one of the biggest retailers, which still is one of the biggest high street chains and very profitable ones. So I see there is a question for demand forecast. How can we take into account features like abnormal demand due to COVID? And I'm going to answer this question in, I would say, 15 minutes, because that's the second half of my presentation. And I'm going to answer the question. Now we are in a fairy tale world before COVID where everything is working. Okay, where we haven't actually had the pandemic. So what Zara does is that you can actually, it has got an in-app tailoring where you give your measurements like height, weight, and some other information. And based on the information, it gives you your size. Okay, and it also tells you that you, for example, size 30, for the descriptions you have given, size 32 was bought and not returned by 84% of the shoppers. Now, this is very important. You know why? Because when this information is provided and the customer is actually buying this product online, and based on the accurate predictions for Zara, the logistics flow and also the production becomes very easy, because these decisions or these recommendations are made by artificial intelligence based on historical data sets and real data sets. So there is a consumer experience, service experience becomes better. So if the more likely the size is right, there won't be any return deliveries, there won't be any issues. So it is very important to understand that it is not about just about supply chain planning, but also looking at the customer side of things. Okay, in the online environment. In online shopping, it is used. We know that the recommendations are made by Netflix, then we have Spotify, we have YouTube. So the system is basically collaborative filtering. We look at what customer is selecting, okay, explore other customers who have selected the same thing and share the similar characteristics and then make a recommendation. But all the basic idea is automated. What happens here? Because it not only gives a better customer experience, but it helps in increasing the revenue generation, because many of the times the recommendations work and people buy those things, and it helps to give personalized offers to incentivize people to buy those recommendations or to use those recommendations. Process optimization in the supply chain, in the manufacturing industry, or in a retail supply chain. What is done is that the tasks, the processes, and the activities are tracked. After tracking the activities, inefficiencies are clustered together and efficiencies are clustered together based on a number of constructs. That what is the time taken to complete the task, what is the task completion rate, what is the success rate of the task, and compared it to the historical data sets. Now, the important thing you will ask here is that can AI do this? AI can do this in two different ways. Number one is that if you have a numerical data, then it can simply do clustering using machine learning. However, if you have textual data, many a times the data is not numerical. It can use natural language processing and can tell you that which are the efficient tasks, which are the inefficient processes. And the idea, it is called business process mining. In case of business process mining, when this is done and when the outputs are provided, the supply chain consultants can actually look for business process reengineering. They can re-engineer the processes based on the recommendations to optimize it. So critical part here is that it will identify bottlenecks in the supply chain, and those bottlenecks may be very difficult to identify in global supply chains because it's a very vast ecosystem. So it is extremely difficult for one person or n number of people to find bottlenecks or to find efficient and inefficient processes. And these small efficiencies and inefficiencies can lead to massive profitability within the company, within the organization. So artificial intelligence helps a lot in making this in supply chain restructuring and supply chain planning, and to drive these data-driven decision-making strategies. Then we have predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is something which has been there for now many years, and it is basically predict the downtime of a machine part. So there is a machine, predict when the machine needs maintenance before it basically goes into a downtime that is cannot be used anymore or had to be repaired. So in these cases, the sensors in the machines generate data, and the AI can incrementally and systematically predict based on the historical data sets. Now, historical data sets of machine are very easy to find, because all the machines data are recorded in some format, and they may not be in cloud in all cases, but they may be will be in a database. Now, for example, Rolls-Royce uses artificial intelligence to to do the predictive maintenance of aircraft engines. Okay, so that's a real use case. Now, in many cars use it now, like Audi, Mercedes, they use it. So for example, if you have a car and your uh, car has all the sensors, these sensors are connected to the cloud, which is the for the Mercedes platform, and you have an app, and before your car actually there is an issue with the part, you will straight away get a notification from the car manufacturer that you need to go for a maintenance check for this part. So it actually increases the reliability of the, and also the reduces the downtime. In healthcare sector, COVID-19 like diagnosis, it has become, artificial intelligence has been used a lot. And I must say this thing, this is not a replacement for expert medical advice or decisions made by experts in the medical field. And this is during March and April, when there were no testing kits. So researchers in different universities like King's College London, and some other universities developed a artificial intelligence model which could do two things. Number one, it could diagnose or recommend based on the symptoms whether the likelihood of a person to actually have the COVID-19 virus, number one. And number two is that if they have the COVID-19 virus, what is the likely chance of they becoming extremely sick? Now, during March and April, you can understand there was no testing kit. So how did it help? It helped in the way that hospitals could prepare their capacity and prepare their beds based on these recommendations, that how many people are going to get more sick, that is going to the ICU. But again, it was based on a selected set of data, so the accuracy of the predictions was around 75 to 80%. But I must say it's a very good accuracy, given that even with that accuracy, the hospital can actually prepare their beds and prepare their ICU in advance, and as well as the manpower. So I have a question here which I will take. In my experience, what is the most used machine learning model for supply chain processes? I would say that the most used machine learning model for a supply chain process is, in the current scenario, is deep learning. Currently, deep learning means the data would actually, the algorithm will automatically adapt itself, and the automatically adapt itself to the input data, number one. Number two, another model which has been very much used is, this is not a model, this is a method, is the clustering approach. Clustering approach is used in order to cluster a efficient processes and inefficient processes. So these kind of models have been used a lot. Now, when we look at the when we look at the specific models, like, I'm just giving examples of some algorithms like k nearest neighbor, random forest, and then we also have other variations of k nearest neighbors. These models are basically, they're very static models. They are used in machine learning, but they're very static algorithms. With the complexity in the data sets, now we are using hybrid models, that which combines one or more models. And the third one that is very much used is called reinforcement learning, which is between machine learning and deep learning. I have another question is, how important will AI be in agriculture word production? AI will be extremely important in agricultural word production because the field is already called precision agriculture. And the idea of the precision agriculture is to optimize the growth of food and reduce the food waste and reduce the use of chemicals. Because according to United Nations, we are at food scarcity and we are at water scarcity. So precision agriculture, which is actually powered by AI, and IBM is one of the leading innovators, has been using the various sensors data from the soil and the climate in order to optimize the use of irrigation systems, optimize the use of land, and at the same time reduce the use of chemicals and pesticides. So next one is, there are other applications, as one of our participants asked. Precision agriculture, so optimize the food production, and it is also being used in disaster management, for shelter allocation, for product procurement, for logistic management during a earthquake or during a cyclone or during floods. Uh, in supply chain procurements and supply chain inquiries, being used automated intelligent bots. So the bots can automatically, a rule-based system which automatically do the trivial tasks. In shipping and logistics, we are looking at the emergence of autonomous vehicles. We know already that Amazon has tried drones, but there are companies which will be trialing like self-driven trucks. So a human maximum can drive, let's say, between 7 to 10 hours per day. Okay. For autonomous vehicles, they will be like 24 hours, they will be driving, self-driving. So there are implications for the industry, but there is one important thing here. There are implications environmentally. So autonomous vehicles have to meet the environmental standards, and that will be a challenge. Even with drones, what we are seeing is that there are a lot of limitations related to the payload, and lot of limitations related to how reliable they are. Okay. So now we are going to the, before is all the fairy thing, and then while all this everything was emerging, we came to COVID-19. Now I have a question on food perishable conservation. Now let's take the example, and this is a real example. Let's take the example of strawberries. So strawberries from farm to fork to the consumer. So it has a shelf life. So when you take a strawberry from the farm, first of all, you have to store it in a specific temperature for a certain period of time, and then it has to go to the retailer by another specific period of time, and then it will go to the consumer. Now, if I have to say the truth, that there is for any perishable good like this, there is a lot of wastage. Now, what AI can do is that now you can accurately, once a strawberry is plucked, you can accurately predict that what will be the temperature that the strawberry of what will be the optimal temperature to store the strawberry for for a period of time, and until it reaches retailer, and then there is enough shelf life left for the consumer to consume it. Now, this is done based on the previous data sets where they have seen that looked at the shelf life of strawberries. Now, important thing here, two important things: the temperature, the time it takes to reach the retailer and then to the consumer. Now, between all these things, there is also a route tracing, that you have to send the strawberry from point A to point B using the most optimal route. And using the most optimal route is actually, you don't know that what is the most optimal route. You cannot without AI, you cannot predict the most optimal route. You can say that, yeah, A to B, this is the fastest route, but that may not be the fastest route, because what artificial intelligence will do is that it will take into account the I will say the vehicle conditions. It will take into account the route conditions. It will take into account all the external factors and then give you a prediction of what are the possible routes that the vehicle can take. So there are three things here: the temperature, the time taken to reach. The third thing is the shortest route or the most optimized route. And then there is enough shelf life left. Now we look at the COVID scenario. In the COVID scenario, we had a February 2020, March 2020, we had the COVID-19. And first, it started with memes that we sit at home, everyone is working from home. There were like, we were getting used to the virtual environment. Everyone was having fun, first 5 days, first 7 days, first 2 weeks. But then while we were doing this, there was an important thing that happened. The thing was that the buying patterns changed. So these were the top search terms in Amazon and top bought products. We had tissue papers, hand sanitizers, masks, paracetamol, milk, eggs, and for all of us, good headphones, good microphones. Now, you have to understand one thing here. This is not just product, right? This is like, this product is being manufactured somewhere, then distributed, and then from the warehouse, sent to the retailer or the customer. There were, if you look at the news in United Kingdom or in Europe or even in US or even in most countries, there were people were not able to buy or not able to find any paper towels, any tissues, any hand sanitizers or masks. There was a ripple effect across the retail supply chain. And the ripple effect was that everyone was trying to stock things in their home. Instead of buying one sanitizer, people were buying 20 sanitizers. At the end of the day, there were no sanitizer left in the shelf. So it created a ripple effect in the retail supply chain. Supply chain was not prepared for it because it was considering the normal behavior. Like, okay, people are buying this. The next product will be, people will be buys the product I recommend. And the supply chain was in chaos because no one predicted it. Now, here is the point, is that the question is that no one even when COVID started beginning in January, no one thought about it, that the buying behavior will change, because everyone was so confident about the fact that we know what people want. We are looking at social media, we are looking at this, so we exactly know what people want. We know their buying behavior. We have all these historical data sets of their buying behavior. So we are absolutely sure what they want. We are planning it. We are very agile, everything. But it was a complete chaos in the supply chain, in every entity. Now, what happened to machine learning? That is the question. What happened to machine learning? Let's get the basics right. Machine learning trains from historical data sets, right? So these historical data sets were for normal situation. Now the input data that the algorithms were getting was very different to the data sets they have trained on. For example, you study for supply chain management, and you are going to sit an exam for business. Let's say sit an exam for foreign language, let's say French. Of course, you learn supply chain and you're sitting an exam for French. Does not make sense for a human. In this case also, the same thing happened. They learned from a data set which was for normal behavior, and the input data was from an extreme situation that is going on. So the machine learning was not able to predict anything. There was a mismatch between what they were recommending and what they were selling. So machine learning cracked simply. The algorithms cracked. The algorithms couldn't actually generate any insights. That's what I am saying initially, okay? When it happened, February, March, April, May, there was a mismatch between what it learned and what it was, the data that it was getting. So it could not find a match. So how AI behaved? So what happened? And this is a true story. Consumers were buying goods. It is not that the consumers stopped buying, but they were buying different products for which the machine learning has got no historical data set saying that a person a person who is buying a mask will also buy a sanitizer, will also buy an IT equipment, and will also buy a hand wash. There is no historical data set. So artificial intelligence, they were not able to cope up with it because it is not trained for such events. And what businesses had to do, they had to do manual intervention, and it is the truth. And even in many companies, even in Amazon, they had to do manual interventions because it was not possible realistically to actually trust the AI, because AI couldn't do anything, couldn't give a prediction, couldn't do a recommendation. Now, the first lesson learned, and I think there was a question on this, is that we have to retrain the AI with new data sets to develop better and resilient machine learning models. So first thing is that COVID-19 proved that AI models are very fragile. The current models that we have are extremely fragile. So next time someone says that, oh, machine learning AI is going to replace human jobs and replace leaders, no, it cannot. It's proven fact now. They are fragile. So it has to be trained with new data sets. And data sets of what? Data sets of Ebola epidemic, data sets of financial crisis, data sets for SARS, for Black Monday stock market crash, influenza when it happened, Great Depression, plague in San Francisco. So it has to put the data set for all the extreme situations that has happened. Now, we are now in a pandemic. If tomorrow, hopefully everything will be fine. If something similar happens again, then we need to learn from this. But all these data, but we cannot get enough data sets from 1976 or 1930 or 1900. We may not, but what we can get is from 2006 and 2009 and 2014. So we have to retrain the machine learning models with new data sets that can actually help them make predictions, help them draw insights, help them automate. Otherwise, they are fragile. The second thing is that retraining AI model in most businesses was extremely difficult, and in the supply chains in specific. Why? In order to retrain the model, you have to have certain skills, and these skills are required in order to rectify the AI. So within the organization, there was no skills, because what the organizations they do is that they get the software, they outsource the software, they get it from a vendor, and they put it there, and software runs on its own. But that is not true. You have to have a watchful eye on the artificial intelligence models and on the recommendations, and that requires in-house skills. And according to a number of surveys, we find that the in-house skills within the companies are extremely less. And extremely less means that there is a lack of in-house skills. So what kind of in-house skills are we looking for? We are looking for a skill that bridges the gap between business and technical. So you don't have to be a AI developer, but you need to have domain expertise. But you need to understand that when AI recommends something, whether that makes sense or not. If it does not make sense, then what is the data set that needs to be fed in to the AI so that it makes sense? So that is very important. In-house skills, and these are the skills, these are not technical development skills, these are the skills about domain expertise. And before this, when we look at it, we always felt that machine intelligence is basically determines the human behavior. So we were all the businesses were under the impression that we can define the human behavior. We can say that what they will buy, what they should be doing. But everyone took one important element out of the equation. It is the situation. Human behavior is determined the situation and the context and what goes around. During an emergency situation, the human behavior will not be determined a recommendation from AI software. And that is the critical part. There is a codependence between the human behavior and machine intelligence. But for emergency situation, this codependence is more between human behavior and the emergency situation. So in order to have machine intelligence, like artificial intelligence, actually be able to give better recommendations, you need to depend on human intelligence, because it has to be a symbiotic relationship. And why symbiotic relationship? Because although machine intelligence can give you automation, can give you analytical capability to process all the data, when it goes wrong, like in emergency situation, the only thing that can rectify is human intelligence, human experience, human judgment. And AI does not have that, because AI is developed by human. At the end of the day, it is artificial, so it is fabricated. I see a number of questions here. So I will go with the question on where can logistics service, knowledge-based consulting service implement knowledge-based consulting services implement AI. So in the case of logistics service suppliers, so I would say that in the case of logistics service suppliers, they can let's say DHL, they can implement AI for the predictive maintenance of their vehicles, number one. Number two is that they can implement AI for route tracing. Route tracing means, and they are already using it, to be honest. Route tracing means that you basically have to today deliver 10 parcels. So in order to deliver 10 parcels, you are given a route where the parcel, where you go from first to second, second to third in a most optimized way. What AI will do is that based on the route, okay, based on the route you are taking, if there are any issues within the route, then it can give you an alternative, and that is called real time. So you get the real time, absolutely real time processing and real-time recommendations. So it is very easy to say, yeah, I will go from point 1 to point 2 and point 3 and point 4. What if between point 2 and point 3 there is a, let's say, something has happened? So in that case, you can redirect, they can redirect you to point 2 to point 6. So those are the kind of things where in the logistics they can use. Another thing in logistics they can use, and I'm not sure like if if everyone is aware of it or not, but Amazon has done something very interesting. So during the COVID, I hope everyone uses Amazon, right? So what they do is that whenever you go to Amazon, you can actually when you search a product, they will give you a list of the products, and it is automatically filtered from first result to the last result based on the suppliers who actually put their products in Amazon warehouses. Okay, so Amazon takes care of all the delivery. So first product you see is basically delivered by Amazon. Second product you see is delivered by Amazon. So they don't actually, independent suppliers whose products are not in Amazon warehouse, they are listed at the end. Because of COVID, what had happened, and this is one of the good examples, is that, and it is not about just AI, it is about the human intervention. Because of COVID, Amazon couldn't actually have enough products in their warehouse to deliver. So now what they had to do is that they had to go back and change the algorithm so that the suppliers who deliver on their own can be listed in the top based on certain criteria. So that is one of the ways that actually Amazon uses AI, and Amazon has changed its way it uses it as a result of COVID. There is another question is, forecast is not same as in normal situation. How we can handle these changes if our factories take 60 or 90 days to have the goods available? In the current situation, the forecast is not same as in normal. How can we handle these changes if our factory takes 60 or 90 days to have the goods available? You're absolutely right. Current situation is not normal situation, but it is the new normal. We should have been prepared for this. It is not. We should have been prepared for this. Now, in the current situation, artificial intelligence has failed. That is the truth. And artificial intelligence has failed because it is fragile. It is made to work for certain circumstances, for normal situations. So the question is that now no one is using a lot of forecasting, to be honest. Now, and no one has to use a lot of forecasting. In order to use the forecasting, what they should have done is very simple. They should have looked at the spread of the virus. This is what I would have suggested. They should have looked at the spread of the virus. I won't name any country or any city. City X or region X, this is the spread of the virus. Based on the spread of the virus, they would have easily calculated how much would be the demand, because the demand had spiked. So of course the demand will be high, but demand is high doesn't mean you have to overproduce. But the demand is high means that you have to produce a amount that actually can fit somewhere between the needs. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there was another factor which no one looked at. Another factor is public health. When it comes to health and when it comes to public health, people are behavior of people change. And that is what happened. We always thought we took health out of the equation, we took pandemic out of the equation, and we took people out of the equation because it was the it was the I would say the mindset of the people to stockpile at home that led to this situation. And again, in the supply chain context, you have to consider also another thing. uh, One of the major exporters like China, it was really affected as a result of the whole situation. So everywhere there was a mayhem. There was such a mayhem that if I remember, Louis Vuitton, which is a high-end perfume, they manufacture high-end perfumes. Louis Vuitton started in their production line, started producing hand sanitizers. And that is basically human judgment. So yeah, you are absolutely right. And another question is, there are any philanthropy fund focused on AI investing talent and funds in projects with social impact? Yes, there are a lot of funds where so if you're talking about funds where with social impact, there are a lot of funds, and one of the funds is I think Facebook. If you look at Facebook has its own funds which range from $50,000 to $100,000 for the use of AI for social impact. A use of AI for not just social impact, use of AI for capacity building in economies, for capability building in economies, for social sustainability. Microsoft has certain funds. Microsoft always have funds from time to time. But here is the thing. We work with a lot of countries in the world. And to be honest, currently there is a fund which is between UK and Colombia, and which is with the Colombian government, is actually developing some systems and framework to combat the negative impact of COVID-19. There are many funds on that. So where AI based studies will be critical. Now, one of the things while we are talking is that when I say human intelligence and machine intelligence, there has to be a balance maintained. Okay. So if someone today comes to me and says that AI will take away all the jobs, AI will take away will create a issue in the industry. AI won't create any of those things. The thing is that even if things are automated in a data-driven decision-making strategic context, the job descriptions and roles will change. Okay, the roles will change. What people do, instead of just copying and pasting emails, they will do something more productive. That's how the job sector will change. But luckily with the luckily or unluckily with COVID, how things have transpired is very unpredictable. All around the world there is an economic meltdown. There is unemployment rate is high. We are not even living in recession, we are living in depression. That's what has happened. So the question is that at this stage, what we need to do is that we need to find the balance between human intelligence and machine intelligence. And the reason for that is the symbiotic relationship that they have. That is very important to follow that relationship. Not say that AI will only exist, humans will not exist, or humans will only exist, AI will not exist. They will coexist. They are codependent on each other. And finally, my thoughts. AI is fabricated intelligence. Okay. AI is fabricated intelligence. It is artificial. It is learns from the data sets. The learning is as good as the input data set. I call is garbage in, garbage out. If it learns from a data set that is very dynamic, that considers all scenarios that can happen, then the quality of the output will be very good. Otherwise, the quality of the output will not be good. Now, that is the fact. If someone says that, okay, no, you know what, AI can do everything. No, it cannot do everything. It is proved now. Like even if every industry will say that it has limitations, it is fragile. Human involvement in any automated system remains the key, and that is what the pandemic has proven. Human involvement is necessary. Without human intervention, it would be extremely difficult, because at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, the only person or the human beings can only fix it with their own experience, with their own judgment, with their own knowledge, with their own common sense. And in the case of we have to bridge the gap between business and tech, and in-house capability is essential. When things go wrong with the AI, which is what is now happening, in-house capability is required, because without in-house capability, no one would understand that we need to retrain the AI. Yeah, the model is not working. It won't work because actually it is not meant to work for these systems. It is not meant to work for this situation. So the key idea is that what we have learned is that do not underestimate the human skills, because it on at least on planet Earth, it is not artificial. On planet Earth, it is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, it is the human beings who will make the decisions, and it is the human beings who have to rectify when machines go wrong. So that is the important part. There is another question, is that use of deep learning in this area. Of course, here is yes, artificial intelligence algorithms, they can be machine learning, supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning. Then there can be neural networks and deep learning. Neural networks and deep learning, why it is called, it resembles the human brain. The way they work is similar way our brain works. So that's where the name comes from. Yes. Now, deep learning. What is the difference between machine learning and what is the difference between deep learning? Now, machine learning models, you have to train with the data sets. Okay. You have to train. Every model has to be trained. Deep learning model does not require training. So what it will do is that it will, and that's a very good question, because why, you will see the answer and you will find why. Deep learning, you take the data set, and machine learning will find, deep learning, you take the data set and the algorithm will automatically find patterns within the data without any prior learning. Now, here is the problem. In order to find patterns within the data, you have to generate that data first. Second, in the pandemic situation, if you see that every single person is buying toilet papers and buying hand sanitizers, there will be no output. There will be no output because because the deep learning wouldn't be able to find any pattern in the data. And because it is unable to find any pattern in the data, it won't give any output. Number one. Number two, which is actually a bit more important here. So consider a scenario where you use your bank card and you bought from Amazon a hand sanitizer, lots of toilet papers, a electronic instrument, and everything. If your bank card is using a fraud detection system, your bank card is is using any deep learning algorithm or any other AI algorithm, your bank card will decline it as a fraudulent transaction. And this had happened to me, to be honest, as a fraudulent transaction, because it is thinking that why this guy is buying all these things, because he does not buy these things generally, because in the bank you have all the transactions. So I won't name the bank I am using, but you have all the transactions, so they can see what kind of things you do. So the question is that even if you use machine learning, even if you use deep learning, you use any sort of learning, AI is not actually being made for these kind of situations. So it cannot cope with the situation. And particularly the way that the buying behavior of people has been. Now we could say that you know what, that supply chain could actually, they should have anticipated that these kind of things will happen. Now here is the point: they had anticipated these kind of things will happen, but during the lockdown everything is closed. During the lockdown everything is closed. So how are they going to produce it, and where are they going to produce it? So the critical here part is that there was a fairy story before COVID. During the COVID, everything failed, AI cracked. After the COVID, we are thinking that now how can we make AI work? That is the bigger question. But what we have learned from here is that we have to have a watchful eye on artificial intelligence. Human is the key to actually successfully making for successful deployment of AI and successful usage of AI. Human is the key, because human has to watch it. Otherwise, it will fail. Even from a supply chain perspective, when you are making supplier selection using AI, when you are making procurement decisions, even when you are making nowadays retails do these kind of things. The pricing decisions that I predict what is going to sell. I take all the pricing from my competitors, and automatically based on the AI find a price that I can generate more profit, and there will be more people who will be buying this product. These are all fine, but the question is that if the whole product range changes. So because what happened to fashion retail? Everyone stopped buying jeans and shirts and trousers and everything. Everyone started buying nightwear. Now the question is that if everyone is buying nightwear, then it is a competition of who can deliver you fastest. That's the competition, and that's where the point comes. It has not it AI can't actually do anything with the buying behavior. But what AI can do is that AI can tell you that what will be the most optimal route to get it from point A to point B. That is what AI can do. But if you are using the AI for the purpose of, okay, I will do demand prediction, it won't work in emergency situation, because in emergency situation the demand is high. We don't even know what will be the demand. It depends on the factors for which the AI is not trained for. So in short, the thing is that if you are using some kind of automation, we have to be extremely vigilant of how it is giving the recommendations, what is the data used to train it, and if the recommendations are actually making sense or not. Now, last but not the least, everything is not AI. There are some things which are AI, some things which are just simple simple mathematical models or statistical models or even simulation models. Not everything is AI. Some things are AI, some things are not. And so we have to use the word very carefully when we are talking about artificial intelligence. They have the potential to do predictions in normal scenario, and they're doing it. However, in the emergency and extreme situations like the pandemic, they have become fragile. Now, I work in the area of crisis and disaster management a bit, and in that area, it has worked. because we have a lot of data about floods, about earthquakes, about on cyclones. So yeah, based on that, we can do an AI model and it can make decisions. But the current situation is one of its kind. It cannot. So that basically brings me to the end of my presentation. And if you really like memes, there is a website, and this website is actually, you upload an image, and what it does is that it automatically generates a meme for you. It's a very good website. It's quite realistic. It was actually launched during the COVID and has been used a lot. So you can try this. It is a very fun one that you put an image and it will generate a meme for you. I'm just checking that if I have answered all the questions.
Yes, Zoom, at the current stage, we don't have additional questions. Thank you very, very much for this very interesting presentation. Also, the impulses set by you. I'm not actually sure if I share your optimism with respect to the impact on employment. And let's maybe wait a bit, maybe some new questions will emerge. But using the term emerged, in the emerging markets, might it not get into a kind of dependency towards the information owners? You mentioned that information, big data will be the new asset. We know, and when we follow basic characterization of the emerging market, where we say lack of information availability, also lack of training of the people in terms of highly skilled human beings. We have high volatility, and to a large extent, we are based on small and medium-sized companies. So could this development not increase the dependency on the data owner, on the ones capable to develop and sell the algorithms for the emerging markets? Or do you see that, that this will not create an additional risk in these markets like Colombia?
So I'm just making sure that I understand the question, that you are saying that the data availability is a key concern in the emerging markets, in the developing economies, and without a proper infrastructure, what we call is the digital transformation, and without the proper data being there, you will unable to employ any of these algorithms, which will...
It's not about the application. It's just also about the information availability.
Yeah.
When you say, for example, we need big data, and we need control towers. We need companies capable to collect the data, to track the supply chain. And so far, we identified that many companies lack this financial capacities to create such type of platforms.
Yep. Actually, I will give you an example from India. Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when the problem is in this context, the problem is the data availability is not a problem, because you can actually, what you can do is that you can find similar organizations in other economies, similar economies, and you can use that data in order to mitigate the issue of data availability. That's the first thing you can do, because that is possible and that is done a lot. So I'll give you an example for this. The city I come from, during the COVID, there was a super cyclone in that city during COVID. Now, the city did not had any super cyclone in the past, but if we match the characteristics of that city to another city, which has the similar characteristics in another part of the world in a similar economy, then we can actually get the data from the second city and try to simulate it. In similar cases, when we are talking about the SMEs in Colombia, they will share bit different characteristics, but at the end of the day, that you can have some data to make the decisions on. Now, second question thing you asked, that yeah, it requires a lot of infrastructure. It is a cost. It is it requires the digital transformation, it requires a cost. Now, I don't agree with it a lot, because the question is that big data and artificial intelligence, or the artificial intelligence, or these systems, expert systems, have become cheaper because of two reasons. Number one is the storage capacity, and the cost of storage has decreased. And the second thing is that the cost of sensors has also decreased. So now, if you are talking that infrastructure is an issue, infrastructure is an issue, but infrastructure is less expensive compared to where it was. So if I want to go to specific industry now, if I want to track and trace something, you can just use RFID tags. The RFID tags are basically, we put the RFID tags and you store the data in a cloud. Now the question is that, if I think that is not more about expensiveness, it is more about being have the confidence to do that, have the in-house ability to do that, because have the surety, have the assurance that if you do that, you will be able to get some kind of value. And I think that's the bigger problem. Infrastructure is a problem in many developing economies, but at the same time, I would say that the infrastructure cost has reduced. And if you look at the current statistics which are put by United Nations, 90% of the world businesses are SMEs, and 90% of out of these 90%, 75% of are in developing economies. So I think that it won't take time, but it will take a more assurances. However, with the COVID situation, I don't think it is practical enough to think about any of these things for any of the small businesses, because unless the larger businesses within the supply chain make an effort to actually help the the small businesses and SMEs to digitally transform, I don't think it is going to happen in any part of the world. So it used to, if you would have asked me this question in January, I would have given a different answer. But today, I think that there are a lot of factors involved here, more than AI, more than infrastructure, more than cost, and because of the COVID. And it is more about now the mindset and the ability to recover. And the ability to recover won't be like, automation is not going to recover all these things. It has to be recovered in a traditional way of what we called is the repurposing the supply chain.
So thank you very, very much also for this comprehensive answer. We all look for improvement of productivity, and one of the major aspects you addressed also to make better decisions. You demonstrated now also that it might not be the infrastructure nor the money or the data availability, but we might face challenges in the structure of the mindset, also in the internal capabilities. So I guess this field will be very, very important for all of us in the upcoming years or decades. There might also become at one moment ethical concerns on the table, discussed a bit stronger. As I see, we don't have at this moment any more questions. So let me please thank you again for sharing your expertise in this field by demonstrating this amount of examples also within the context of the COVID-19. It was a great pleasure for us to have you as a speaker in our seminar series. You added a lot of value to the series, and thank you very much, and I hope to see you on another occasion.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I really thank everyone for joining us in the afternoon, and also your questions. And I hope that together we will explore more opportunities and get to better understand that perhaps the value of the AI in the supply chain post-COVID, and if there is one.
Perfect. Yeah. So
Thank you.
thank you very much. Also, thank you to everybody who joined today's webinar on artificial intelligence and supply chain management. We will continue with a seminar series and hope to continue with such important and interesting conferences like we had today with Zoom. Thank you very much to everybody. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.